Oh, hey there, 8th graders. It's Miss Crofutt, and I just wanted to go through really quick your assignment for today. So first thing you guys should have done today is opened your OneNote in your Teams. You guys should already have a section titled DNA, and you should already have a page in that section titled Mutations. I want you guys to go ahead, if you have not already, click Add Page here at the bottom, and then type in Structure of DNA. I actually drug that above Mutations. Then you can go into Teams and copy and paste these two sets of notes, which I'm going to go over with you guys right now. Okay, so first one is DNA structure. So this kind of gives you guys some good information about genes that you guys will need to know for the quiz and DNA. So first off, you guys have a gene, which this should be a pretty familiar word for you now. It's a segment of our DNA that makes a certain protein, which influences traits. So we have this big, long strand of DNA, but just one part of that is called a gene. Okay, and we have lots of genes. We have about 20,000 genes. Okay, so these 20,000 little sections of our DNA are going to be what make a protein to influence certain traits such as eye color. Okay, so we have a little section of our DNA that makes a protein that makes our eyes, in my case, brown. Okay. You guys also have a lot of DNA in between genes that we just really don't know the use for yet. So we call those non-coding genes or non-coding DNA. Okay, second of all, DNA is considered a blueprint for life. So you guys can think about the word blueprint for a second. Where have you heard that word the most? Okay, a lot of you guys are probably thinking like, oh, you know, like construction workers use a blueprint to build a house or a building. Okay. That's the same for DNA. A blueprint is basically the instructions. So what I hear kids say a lot is, all right, well, what's DNA? And they say, DNA is what makes your eyes brown and your hair brown and your skin a certain color. Well, that's just not true, okay? We don't have little DNA floating around in our eyeballs that are brown, okay? We have proteins that are brown that make our eyes brown, okay? So DNA is strictly the instruction to make those proteins. So it gives us the instructions to build proteins, and we need proteins to live. Literally, you guys, you have proteins everywhere in your body. Your hair is made of a substance called keratin, which is a protein. Your eyes have multiple types of protein inside of them, and like the goo on the inside, plus the muscle, the iris, okay, is what your eye color comes from, is actually a protein. You guys have collagen and elastin are both types of protein in your skin. Your fingernails are made out of a protein called keratin. Your bones have a lot of protein called collagen in them. In fact, at least a third of your bone is actually a really bendy protein called collagen. The rest is the hard stuff that makes your bones hard. All your muscles are protein. When you guys eat food and you guys have all kinds of enzymes that come into your stomach and digest it, those are all proteins too. So literally your body could not function without proteins. DNA holds the recipe to make those proteins. So let's just talk for a second about a little bit about the process of how this happens. So we have this little organelle inside of our cell called the ribosome that is kind of like the chef. He reads the recipe or the blueprint and he puts together these proteins. Okay, we find all of our DNA in the nucleus, and then we can also have mutations in our DNA. So when we're making copies of our DNA, you guys might see a lot of mutations occur, but mutations are not always bad. Okay, a mutation, since they make proteins, could not change the protein at all, and nothing happens. It could be something bad where you have a mutation or a change in your DNA that causes something like cancer. Or it could be really good. It could be a change in your protein that causes you to be more adapted to your environment, and it's easier for you to live and function. Okay, so let's just talk briefly then about the structure of DNA. So DNA gets its name deoxyribonucleic acid. So you can see the D in deoxyribo. Nucleic, because we find it in the nucleus, is your N, and then acid is your A. Okay, so the actual shape of DNA is what we refer to as a double helix. It's called a double because it has two strands. So we have one side and we have two sides. In other organisms, and especially in things like viruses and bacteria, we see single-stranded ones too. Okay, we see single-stranded ones with a little bit different base pairs as well. But in human beings, we have a double helix. So it's double because it has two strands. And it's helix because it twists. So it kind of reminds you of a spiral staircase where it twists. Okay? So it's 2 strands that twist, double helix. Okay, it's made up of nucleotides. So just kind of like we talked earlier about a protein, if we eat proteins in our body digests them and breaks them down into amino acids. Turns out that all the proteins in the world, whether it's something we find in our body or something elsewhere, are only made of 20 different amino acids. Those are the building blocks of proteins, okay? Just like protein has building blocks, DNA has building blocks as well. So these little building blocks are called nucleotides. So basically we put nucleotide upon nucleotide upon nucleotide upon nucleotide on top of each other to form a really long strand of DNA. Proteins, again, are made of amino acids, and there's 20 of those. But DNA, which makes us so different than every other organism and even every other human being, only has 4 different types of nucleotides, and those are based on their different nitrogen bases. So a nucleotide is composed of 3 things. You have one of 4 nitrogen bases, so you'll either have an adenine, a guanine, a thymine, or a cytosine. And I know Miss Enfield has talked to you guys about this a lot, so this should all be very familiar to you. A always pairs with T, and C always pairs with G. Okay, so on one side you'll have an A, and then on the second strand you might see a T or vice versa. Same with C and G. Okay, then each nucleotide also has a deoxyribose sugar, or we'll just call it a sugar, found on one side of the backbone. And then they also have phosphate groups found on the other. So those phosphate groups and the sugars alternate sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, all down one side of our backbone, okay, or one side of our DNA. And then the little bases are attached to the sugar. So if we look down on this picture here, you can see my little key of my C's, G's, T's, and A's. You'll see that C and G are always kind of paired together. Doesn't matter what sequence they're in. If you guys see a G on one side, you'll see a C on the other, and vice versa. Same with A and T. If you see a T on one side, you'll see an A on another, and vice versa. You guys can see these 2 lines indicate my double-stranded or my double helix. And if we were to zoom in on that strand, you guys would see sugar and phosphate alternating. So where our base is attached would be where the sugar is. And then in between that area would be where the phosphates are. Okay, and then it twists so you guys can see where it gets the helical shape or the helix. And that's pretty much it for that structure. And let's just zoom in really quick on one nucleotide. So this specific picture I drew you for a nucleotide comes off of the origami that you did or watched a video for with Miss Enfield. On the 2 sides of the backbones for that DNA, you guys saw this little kind of squished bug-looking thing. That would be your phosphate. And then you saw this little pentagon. The pentagon indicates that that's the sugar, okay? And then on the inside, you guys had those 4 different colors that represent either an A, T, C, or G. Okay, so all 3 of those combined together form one nucleotide, and then we grab a bunch of nucleotides, thousands and thousands and millions of nucleotides, and put them together to form our DNA. Okay, so now that we've gone through the notes, I'm just going to explain to you guys what you're doing in class today. So you have 3 links to go through. The first 2 I don't want you guys to spend a whole lot of time, and the second one actually you have a time limit on. So the first one in this is this University of Utah Learn Genetics site. I want you guys to kind of just read through this little paragraph here and this little paragraph here. This one talks about base pairing. So what that is when an A always pairs with a T and a C always pairs with a G. So you guys can see this would represent one nucleotide where this is the phosphate, this is the sugar, and then this is the base. And then it always pairs with its partner over here. So here's your nucleotide. This could be an A, this could be a T. And then this would be your sugar and your phosphate. So read through that, and then you guys can do this little interaction for a minute or 2. You really don't have to do it for very long. Get it to work here. So you might need to refresh. Or I need to refresh because I just pulled this up. So I can hit start building. So what you see is we have 2 strands of DNA up until this point. So you're going to be adding the second strand because now we just have a single. So you guys are going to be building that second strand based on this complementary base pairing. So if I have a T here, I would need to grab a nucleotide with an A. Okay, my next one's a C, so I would need to grab a nucleotide with a G. And so on and so forth. So I want you just to kind of practice this for 2 or 3 minutes. You really don't have to finish this whole strand or anything like that. And then you can go on to your next one. You literally only have... It's unplugged right now. Sorry. I'll come back and get you. I'll come by you, Pop. So you have this gizmo one. You only have 5 minutes in this link, and then it shuts you out. So once you guys get into it, spend your 5 minutes and then be done. You guys can go to Launch Gizmo. And basically what you guys are doing, oh no, is the process of replicating DNA. It's apparently saying I already played for the day. But what you're doing is you guys have a strand of DNA that you're going to build based on your complementary base pairing. And then you guys will go ahead and look at what it would look like if you guys were making a copy. So why would we need to make a copy of our DNA? Okay. In this case, a lot of kids will say, oh, in case your DNA gets damaged. Well, if we could just build another copy of DNA because ours got damaged, then we never have to worry about problems like cancer, okay? Because that's basically one of the reasons cancer forms is when we have damage to our DNA. Okay, so that would be nice. However, that's not why we need a second copy of our DNA. The main reason we need a second copy of our DNA is when we go through cell division. So your body is constantly needing to make new cells. Okay, your other cells are dying, they're getting too old and just not working right, and they die. So let's talk, for instance, about our skin. Okay, we have layers upon layers of skin cell, and the top layer is always kind of dying and sloughing off and floating around. So just think about this. How many of you guys have to dust your house? That is your chore. Okay, when you're cleaning, you guys have to get a rag and dust all the furniture, all the shelves, stuff like that. Okay, most of the dust that you guys see floating around in the air and that lands on your items in your house are actually dead skin cells. So you have your siblings rolling around your house, you have your parents rolling around your house, and of course you. And those are all of their skin cells that have died and kind of floated into the air. Okay, but with that being said, if you didn't replace those with new skin cells, you eventually would just kind of lose layers of skin until you're down to raw muscle and tissue. Okay, which would of course be painful and weird, and you probably wouldn't make it very long before you got an infection and died. Okay, so we need to make new skin cells all the time. So we go through this process called cell division. Well, basically we have our copy of DNA in our cell, but if we're making a new cell out of that, we're gonna need a new copy of DNA through that as well. So we need to make a copy of our first DNA, so we have one set for the new and one set for the old. So this little gizmo sheet that you guys will be doing, again, you can't spend more than 5 minutes, but of course I don't want you to make an account and spend more than that. You guys will kind of build your DNA strand, and then you'll go through the process of, all right, now that we have our double-stranded DNA, okay, we have this little enzyme that's going to split it in half, and now we're going to create 2 new DNAs using those as templates. Those DNAs would go into the new cells. So you can go through this process for as long as it takes you until you get kicked out. Your final one is where I want you guys to spend the most time. So first off, you have this 6-minute video to watch on BrainPop. It explains a lot about DNA, okay? Then you guys will go into this challenge, and you guys can do at least one of these activities in the challenge. So you can either do the review or the graded. It really doesn't matter. I'm not going to grade you guys on that today. So you guys choose whether you want to do it as a review or a graded, but a little hint for you, they're both the same question. Maybe you guys really want to learn this information, so you do both of them. You'll see some multiple response, some fill in the blanks, some organizing, and some matching. Okay, once you guys do that, then you'll go into the quiz. So this is part that you're actually going to get a grade for. You guys will go through. I would suggest doing the review first. Again, the review is the same as the quiz. So I would do the review first, and then once you're done with that, come back in and do the graded part. Okay, once you are done with the graded part, you guys will finish up. Let me finish this last question. Oops, I thought I finished this. All right, so you would finish this quiz, and then you guys get this page that tells me your score, okay? Hopefully at the bottom you guys get this, okay? You can email your results, so you guys can click on that and email them. If that doesn't work, then you guys can do a screenshot. I'm also going to post another little video that teaches you guys how to do a screenshot on a Chromebook. You guys have a little button that you can push. You save it, and then you guys can send it to me in Teams or in email. Or you guys can, if you have a different laptop other than a Chromebook, you guys can use your snipping tool, which is one of my favorite tools to use as a teacher. And I'm sure once you guys figure it out, it'll be one of your favorites as well. So a couple options there, but I need this page showing me how you did and that you finished it. So again, you guys can either email me your results. You guys, if you want to have a printer at home, you guys can print them and bring them to school to me. If you guys are A or B day. And if you guys are DLI, either email it or take a screenshot and email me or send me the screenshot in Teams. Anyway, I hope you guys are all having a great day. I miss seeing your faces, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.